WTO is a single formal and permanent international trade organization dealing with the rules of trade between nations. It came into being in 1995 under GATT. GATT is an international agreement concluded in 1947. Objectives of WTO: 1. To help trade flow as freely as possible. In a developing country like Philippines, free trade can help a lot in advancing their economy through strategic free trade agreements. To achieve further liberalization of trade through negotiations. Policies that make an economy open to trade and investment with the rest of the world are needed for sustained economic growth. The evidence on this is clear. No country in recent decades has achieved economic success in terms of substantial increase in living standard for its people without being open to the rest of the world. To set up an impartial means of settling dispute. In international trade, when drafting international contracts, the parties usually focus in terms of payments and expense but little attention to terms of dispute settlement. Thus, the parties are to be aware that disagreements and disputes can arise at any time. Therefore, in the process of concluding an international economic agreement, the parties should note the provisions of the selection methods of dispute settlement if dispute occurs. Currently, there are 4 dispute resolutions methods in international trade as follows: negotiation, mediation, commercial arbitration, and court. Functions of the WTO. Number 1. Administration of trade agreement. List a few trade agreements under WTO. Forum for Trade Negotiations and Trade Dispute. Forum is the WTO's largest annual outreach event, which provides platform for participants to discuss the latest developments in the world trade and to propose ways of enhancing the multilateral trading system. The event regularly attracts 1,500 representatives from civil society, academia, business, media, governments, parliamentarians, and intergovernmental organizations. Monitor the national trade policies. The purpose of this trade monitoring report is to enhance transparency of trade policy developments around the world and to provide WTO members and observers with an up-to-date picture of trends in the implementation of trade liberalizing as well as restrictive measures, in particular in times of economic crisis where protectionist pressures tend to surge. 4. Technical assistance and training for developing and least developed countries. WTO trade-related technical assistance activities aim to help developing countries build their trade capacity so that they can participate more effectively in global trade. Number 5. Cooperation with other international organizations. The WTO Secretariat also cooperates with a range of other intergovernmental organizations on intellectual property issues where appropriate. WTO entered into force on January 1, 1995. Philippines is one of the founding members alongside other ASEAN countries namely Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, and Myanmar. As of July 29, 2016, 164 countries have ratified their accessions to the WTO. Organizational structure of WTO: Ministerial Conference, General Councils, and Council for each broad area of trade. Highest authority: the Ministerial Conference composed by the representatives of all the members and shall meet at least once every 2 years to review the ongoing work. Day-to-day work in between the Ministerial Conference is handled by 3 bodies: General Council, Dispute Settlement Body, and Trade Policy Review Body. 3 more councils, each handling a different broad area of trade, report to the General Council: the Council for Trade in Goods, Council for Trade in Services, and Council for Trade-related aspect of intellectual property rights. How does decision-making at the WTO arrive? Decisions are normally taken by consensus. It means a general agreement between the WTO members. In what ways the WTO operates? Set of multilaterally agreed rules governing the trade behavior of governments, providing in essence the rules the road for trade. 2. As a forum for trade negotiations in which the trade environment is liberalized and made more predictable through the opening of national markets or reinforcement and extension of the rules. 3. As an international court in which government can resolve disputes with other WTO members. Principles of WTO: Trade without discrimination. WTO agreements, countries cannot normally discriminate between their trading partners, grant someone special favor, and you have to do the same for all the other WTO members. Some exceptions may be allowed. For example, countries can set up free trade agreement that applies only to goods traded within the group, discriminating against goods from outside, or they can give developing countries special access to their markets, or a country can raise barriers against the products that are considered to be treated unfairly from specific countries. Protection only through tariff ensures that protection can only be given to a domestic industry through customs tariff and not through other commercial measures. Stable basis for trade. The binding of tariff level negotiated among the contracting parties provides stable and predictable basis for trade. Consultation. To avoid damage to the trading interests of the contracting parties. This helps clarify difficulties and find equitable solutions to them. Quantitative restrictions. A general prohibition to institute or maintain quantitative restriction was established at a time when quantitative restrictions were widespread and were perhaps the single obstacle toward trade. Today, quantitative restrictions are of lesser significance, although they remain fairly numerous. Regional trading agreements. Group of countries agree to abolish barriers against imports from one another have been established in many parts of the world in recent years. Examples are AFTA, APEC, European Union, and NAFTA. And last is waiver and possible emergency action. Waiver procedures that WTO members may, when their economic or trade circumstances so warrant, seek derogation from particular WTO obligations. Trade liberalization. Trade liberalization is administered through conduct of multilateral trade negotiation referred to as rounds to remove or reduce barriers to world trade. Since the creation of GATT in 1948, 8 rounds of negotiations had been held as seen in the picture. What is Uruguay Round? Uruguay Round was the 8th round of multilateral trade negotiations conducted within the framework of GATT, spanning from 1986 to 1993 and embracing 123 countries as contracting parties. The round led to the creation of the World Trade Organization, with GATT remaining as an integral part of the WTO agreement. The round came into effect in 1995 with deadlines ending in 2000. 3 key results areas of Uruguay Round: market access, rules and discipline, and institutional topics. Trade remedy measures have two categories. One is against unfair trade. Anti-dumping is measured against imports of products that are dumped and such dump imports cause injury to the domestic industry of the importing country. Subsidized imports like dump imports can be countered with special duty called countervailing measures. Second category is against fair trade. Safeguard measures are temporary measures that may be taken to allow a country whose domestic industries or workers are seriously injured by increased but fairly trade imports and to adjust foreign competition. Balance of payment measure. The balance of payment is the record of all international trade and financial transactions made by a country's residents. Negotiation of tariff consumption. The WTO allows renegotiation of bound tariffs subject to the requirement that the return tariffs be compensated.